Hey guys, today I got a good video where I want to share 4 comic books that I got first appearances of characters that I love from video games, old television shows, and then also comic books as well. These are all first appearances. 3 of them are 9.8 CGC, and one of them's a 9.4, but it's signed by the writer. So let's get into it. I spent over $1,000, and I'll get into the pricing of each one. Some might think that's like a midlife crisis happening. I'm 36 years old, but to me, it's actually more of a homecoming and doing something to make my childhood self proud. So the first comic that we have here is Devil May Cry #1. And there's 4 different variants of this. I got the Michael Turner variant. To me, I've always loved Michael Turner's art, and I loved like the way that this looked. So once I saw it actually on a different YouTube channel, I'm like, what? Like, I didn't even know that this was even out there. And it's the first appearance of Dante from the Devil May Cry series. I've played those since middle school, all 5 of them. And then I think there's a prequel as well. I played that too. So to me, one of the coolest things about this is like 2 characters, or like the artist of Michael Turner and the fact that Dante is in this. I was like, I have to get this. So I spent $248 on this comic. I actually got it off of eBay. And one tip that I would give you guys is people are generally willing to make offers. You don't have to just see the price and go, that's above market share, or it's right on price. I'll just keep waiting because I don't want to pay for taxes and shipping, because that does add up, especially when you're getting expensive comic books in the hundreds. Usually what you can do is haggle. Maybe if it's like a $250 comic book, you could probably try to get $15 off. Most of the time, the sellers are willing to negotiate and do that for you. Not every time, but the worst that they'll do is just decline your offer. And I recommend to do it, especially if you're buying it on eBay, because you got to pay taxes and shipping as well. I got this for $248, and then with taxes and shipping it was $275. So it does tack on a little bit more price. And then if you start buying Silver Age graded comics, or if you start getting in the thousands, you don't forget about the tax and the shipping. It's gonna add up. And I'll share the pricing on some other expensive ones that I got here. Yeah, it was real fast before I put that one away. Let's look at the artwork on here. It's pretty cool. I love, like, Michael Turner's art is like a mix of like anime style plus very modern, like Western. I think it's awesome. They got the moon in the back. Yeah, this is a pretty cool book. I'm glad I got this one. I want to take it out of the plastic because the plastic looks pretty messed up. All right, so then the next one. This is what I spent the most money on. It's New Mutants 87, the first appearance of Cable in a 9.8. So I purchased this for $360 from the seller. Again, I think I probably haggled like $15 or $20 off. But then when you factor in taxes and the shipping costs, it jumped from $360 all the way up to $409. So even though I saved like $15 on the price when I made an offer, I paid more than that in taxes and shipping, which I'm totally cool with. To me, I'm not selling these. They're staying in my collection. I definitely would like to see the value go up like over time. But for me personally, these are all characters that I just wanted to have and, again, make my childhood self really happy. Part of the reason why I love Cable is I used to play him in the Capcom versus Marvel 2 video game. Cable was really strong, and he was very overpowered if you learned how to, I think it was just down forward, and then you shoot one of his fast guns, and then you do down forward heavy to shoot his like giant laser beam that would have this wave. And back then, video games, if you found like how to, it pushed, the big laser beam pushed characters like back away from you. So then if you immediately went into his quicker gun, then you can just keep pinging them. And so it's just like a keep away strategy that I feel like old video games they didn't do a good job of balance and making it really difficult for people to get around it. You could jump and try to parry all of those bullets, but by the time most people couldn't do that. And then if some people could, by the time they even got to me, then I just went into combos, knocked them away again, and then started that strategy all over. So that's one reason why I love Cable. The other reason is I just think he's pretty badass. He's from the future. In the comic books and the video games, he's always time jumping around. Whenever there's a really big issue, like Cable is usually there to warn people, tell them like, hey, here's what's happening. Don't do that in the future, or don't do that now because it's going to create a messed up future. I think he's like a really strong character. I want to figure out what level he is. If someone knows, write that in the comments. I know I can Google it really fast, but it'll be interesting if somebody knows. Just type that in and tell me. So what is also really cool about this issue is it's Rob Liefeld and a Todd McFarlane cover. I love Todd McFarlane and I've met Rob Liefeld. He was really cool as well. So having these two creators come together for this issue, I was like, I have to have it. And on top of this, he's good friends with Deadpool, not only in the comic books, but in the video game that I love. I showed that in an earlier video. So my wife got me the New Mutants 98, first appearance of Deadpool, which I shared in that same Deadpool video that I mentioned. So then I'm like, you know what? Let's just go ahead and get Cable's first appearance too, which came out a few months earlier, New Mutants 87. The New Mutants must have been like a really good run during this time because it introduced a lot of characters that they're in movies now. So that was a good era. If you were buying comics and you have good copies of those, you probably saved yourself between this Cable, $400, and between the Deadpool, like $1,000. So that would have been awesome. When did this come out? I think 91. So Cable came out in March of 1990 and Deadpool came out in 91. I was a year old, so I wasn't even old enough to be buying comics at that time. But if you were, that must have been a fun time. Okay, so here's another awesome one that I purchased, which is the first appearance. Hold on, this guy bubble wrapped this really well. I actually opened up a lot of these pre-video filming to make this easier. So the bubble wrap and some of the boxing, they did a really good job. So a lot of eBay shippers know what they're doing. This is the first appearance of Beta Ray Bill, and it's actually signed by Walt Simonson. They had a 9.6 for sale, but the price like really shot up. So this is for my personal collection. So I got the 9.4. I felt like that's a pretty good price point. Modern comics, I would say don't buy anything less than a 9.6. You really see a drop off between a 9.6 and a 9.4 because most modern comics, it's really easy to get a 9.6, a 9.8. There's just a lot of those. But this came out in 1983, November of 1983. So the older it gets, I feel like moderns from the 90s, I guess that's actually copper. But even for copper, you don't want to go below a 9.6 because then the value really tanks. But this is from 83, so I felt like a 9.4 was a pretty good value. And then the fact that it's a signature series signed by Walt Simonson. You could see the signature right here. That looks, honestly, oh, I see. It's a 9.4 because in the top right corner and bottom right corner, it's ripped a little bit. I was thinking, like when I first looked at it, I'm like, man, like the edges over here look great and like the front cover looks pretty good. Why the heck is it not like a 9.6 at least? But then I saw the bent cover up there, dang. Also looks like there's a little bit of staining on the back. Oh, that's interesting. This was from 83 when Star Wars was still coming out. I think the last one was coming out at that time. And so it's got a an ad for Return of the Jedi. Oh, but for a video game. Yeah, that's awesome. So the reason I got the first appearance of Beta Ray Bill is because my brother actually recommended for me to read the Thor series by Walt Simonson. He said it was really good and recommended that I read it. I really enjoyed it, and especially when Beta Ray Bill came in, I thought that he just looked really cool. Like a mix between an alien and like a horse guy. And so I'm thinking they first meet on like a vessel, like out in space. I think Thor was, I read this 15 years ago. I think Thor was like following like a distress beacon or something. And Beta Ray Bill was on there and starts attacking him. So when I first saw Beta Ray Bill, I thought he was a bad guy. But then he actually lifts Thor's hammer, and Thor realized that you have to be worthy to be able to lift the hammer. You have to be a good person, an exceptionally good person. And the fact that Beta Ray Bill was able to lift it, they stopped fighting and realized that he actually was just a survivor from his species. And he took up Mjolnir, and he even got equipped with his armor. I'm trying to piece together the story from 15 years ago, so it's like I might have some of these details off, but that was like the gist of it. And when I was reading that, I thought it was really cool because at that time, I didn't realize that anyone was able to actually wield the hammer outside of Thor. Now, obviously, there's been people like Captain America and Storm. One other person outside of this, I've always thought, is could Goku wield it? Because Goku seems very free-spirited and he's always trying to do his best, but at the same time, it seems like he just loves fighting. So it's possible that he's not that pure of a spirit. I guess he is, because he rode the flying Nimbus. I guess that was that whole thing, is you had to have a free and like pure spirit to ride the Nimbus. So I bet Goku could wield Mjolnir's hammer as well. Someone should create a variant cover of that. That would be pretty sweet. So on this, I spent $205, which honestly, I feel like is a really good deal. If it was like a 9.6, it would have been a lot more expensive. So that's why I think I got a good deal on this one. And then with the shipping and taxes, I paid $229. This was actually the cheapest one, even though it's the oldest and it has a signature. But the reason behind that is because of the grading. Once you get to 9.6 to 9.8 there's very few 10s and 9.9s in comics, the price kind of goes up by a high percentage. I wouldn't say exponentially, but percentage-wise it goes up a lot. All right, so then the last one that I purchased is the first appearance of Carnage. I loved Carnage as a kid. I remember playing Maximum Carnage when I was, it was like definitely like mid-90s. So I had to have been like 5 or 6 years old on the Super Nintendo. And I actually came across Maximum Carnage, not for the Super Nintendo, but for the Sega Genesis recently. So I just purchased it just to recapture and add it to my collection. But yeah, this is from Amazing Spider-Man 361 in a 9.8. I purchased this guy for $285, and then with tax it came out to be $318. But I love Carnage. I think that, is he cooler than Venom? I don't know. I've always thought about it. Like, I do Venom a lot. My next purchase that I want to get is either the first appearance of Venom, which is Amazing Spider-Man 300. Super expensive. I have the trade paperback of it, which was very cheap, so I could at least read it. But I wanted to also get like a cool Venom cover, because he's not on the cover of that. So a lot of people get Venom 1 by Todd McFarlane. So maybe I'll start with that and then carry it around with me at conventions, and hopefully Todd will be there so I can get that one signed. That would be awesome. But going back to what I was saying, me personally, I feel like Carnage is just an even crazier Venom. And like the artwork, he's red and black instead of just like white and black. To me, it's like taking Venom up a notch. I still really like Venom, so I'm not going to say that Carnage is better, but I think it's debatable. A lot of people might argue with me on that one, but I've always liked him. Maybe it's the nostalgia from the video game Maximum Carnage when I was a kid. But other than that, like this like weird oiling that's coming on here, I think that this looks really nice condition. And it is from 1992. There's a lot of books that came out in like the early 90s and like early 2000s that you can get for a few $100s. And in my opinion, I think it's a good investment. The older you start getting, the prices really go up. I've gotten a lot of first appearances of newer X-Men. So I started thinking, oh, like what's like the first appearance of Nightcrawler? That would be really cool because I have Deadpool, I got Cable now. You look that up, that's Giant Size X-Men #1, which I'm sure most of that's a grail. If you start looking for that on eBay, like even in a 5 grading or a 6, like it's thousands of dollars. And the higher you go, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it went up to 11 grand, 12 grand. That starts getting really expensive, but it is the first appearance of a lot of characters like Nightcrawler, Storm, Colossus, second appearance on the team of Wolverine, I believe. It might even be a second appearance overall other than Hulk 181. So to me, that's like a grail. I'm not willing to spend $10,000 on a comic book like right now. I think for investing wise, that would be much better spent putting into the S&P 500 and stocks, and then just let that compound over 20, 30 years. And that $10,000 will most likely outpace and compound way higher than spending 10 grand right now and getting giant size X-Men. Even though I have a feeling that will go up over time, it's not going to outpace the S&P 500 unless something like catastrophic happened. So what you could do to be smart with your money, if you do have thousands of dollars, I would start investing into stocks right now. Let that compound, and then you can make so much money from that compound interest after it usually really starts happening around year 24. You let that compound, and then with the interest that you've earned on that initial investment, you'll probably be able to buy a lot of really cool, expensive old comics, and then you still have that foundational money to continue to grow. So that's my plan. But for these guys, buying like Copper Age first appearances or even modern, for a few $100s per book, it's not really going to make that much of a difference. So in total, I spent, sorry, I'm looking at my paper because I wrote all this down. I spent with shipping $1,231. Is that going to make or break investing right now? Not really. I invest into stocks as well. We can talk about that in other videos, why that's important. But I'm at a point where it's not really going to affect the compound growth too much. Once you have that foundation, I would say if you're just getting started with investing, the easiest thing to do is do what they call dollar cost averaging into an ETF. What is an ETF? It's an exchange trade fund where you could purchase like the S&P 500, you could purchase like all international stocks, you could purchase the entire stock market. You get like tiny little fractions of the entire stock market. And what's nice about that is you're diversified into, let's just say, the total stock market. You're diversified into the total stock market. If you buy something like Vanguard, VTI, actually, sorry, VTI might be the international one, but you could just look it up online. I recommend Vanguard. VOO is the stock ticker for the S&P 500. And then I believe it's VTI, that might be the total stock market, might also be international. But regardless, when you diversify into the entire stock market, if one stock goes completely down, it's a small fraction of that holding, and then usually the next stock that comes into play will just replace it. So over time, you should make an average of 9 to 10%. Since the stock market has been around, that is the average, is 9 to 10%. So if you just let buy a piece of that every month. And if you're just now starting, just get used to it like you're going to the gym, working out. Put in $200, $100, and just buy the Vanguard ETF. And then you can just let that ride and just continue putting in a couple hundred or however much you can afford. And once it starts getting into the thousands and then really the tens of thousands and then the first 100,000 every year, 100,000 should return you a 9 to 10% increase. There's definitely going to be drops, but if you're holding for a long time horizon of 20 plus years, it'll correct, or it should correct. That's what history has said, and eventually average out to a 9 to 10% return. For me, I wanted to capture these comics and add them to my collection. I already have been investing and I continue to invest into stocks, but now I'm starting to invest into collectible assets. Things like the golden collectibles on Netflix have talked a lot about. These physical assets are becoming an alternative. I guess I should say these physical products are becoming an alternative asset. Right now, it's a lot of speculation. Prices generally do increase, just not at the rate that the stocks are. But I guess I'm wrong with that with Pokemon. I think Logan Paul said on there that Pokemon had been increasing by like over 3,000% or something in the last like 5 years. So I guess maybe, if you collect into these now, you could have a Pokemon-like experience where they do go up. I don't know if I'd bank on it, but I do think that once you have a stock portfolio growing, you could start investing some into comic book. And I would start with the Copper Age graded comics. For me, these are all very sentimental assets. I can touch them. I can share stories with you guys. This is why I'm creating this YouTube channel. I wanted to start sharing my hobby that I've been passionate about for pretty much my whole life. As a child, I loved comic books and video games and trading cards and all this stuff. And then as I got into college, I started purchasing comic books, not graded ones, but trade paperbacks to read them and really start liking and understanding the artwork and who's my favorite artist, who's my favorite writers. Then I started going to San Diego Comic-Con and WonderCon and Anaheim and all of these fun events. And then it dawned on me, I'm like, hey, if I'm really getting into this and starting to buy all of these graded comics, because I love like collectible shows, what I mentioned, Golden on Netflix, Golden Collectibles. And then I also really loved Comic Book Men. I met Ming Chen this last year at Comic-Con. I'll share that in another video. I've actually met Kevin Smith too, 2 years ago at Comic-Con. I'll share a story about that one as well in a different video. Maybe I'll combine the Ming Chen and the Kevin Smith into one. But those shows really made me think about, why can't I create a YouTube channel that's I'm not having Stan Lee come in like they are, or like really famous people, but I think at least from like an average person collecting these cool things and just talking about it, and we'll get into the investing point of it and like why I'll talk about why I think certain comics like these guys, the Copper Age ones for several $100s is a good buy right now, because I think maybe 10 years, 20 years, if these characters are still popular, they, instead of being 300, they can be into the thousands. Whereas like Silver Age and then beyond that, they're already in like the thousands or tens of thousands. So they're hard to acquire. But I think Copper Age comics you could do it. Like for the Beta Ray Bill 9.4, I spent $205 on that. What are your favorite characters, or what is the grail that you would want the most to be a 9.8 CGC or even like a signed copy of something? I actually really want to know. I'm curious. Write it in the comment. I would love to hear about your collection, hear your stories, and just share the collectible hobby of comics. Thank you for watching.